I'm about to test drive the brand new 2024 Highland Model 3. I'm really interested in quite a few things, especially comparing it to my 2023 Tesla Model Y. I'm really interested in things like fit and finish, ride quality, sound coming into the cabin while driving, as well as things like the new speaker system, touchscreen responsiveness, and just the general feel of the new Tesla Model 3. When they first announced all of these changes to the Model 3, which tend to end up coming to the Y, I've been really curious if it'll feel like a big enough upgrade for me to want to actually make the switch and upgrade my 2023 Model Y to the potentially Juniper Tesla Model Y. One thing that I'm curious about is on my Model Y with the stalks, I can slow down and then change directions and then slow down without ever touching the brake. You can still do that with the touchscreen. It feels a little less natural to me, but you can still do it. I spent a little bit listening to the audio system, and I will say it sounds significantly better. And issues that I have with the current Model Y sound system, and it's a very good sound system to be clear, but I do think that it tends to be a little bit muddy in the mids, and then the spatial separation isn't as good as I feel like it could be. Here, there's a bit better spatial separation, instrument separation, especially with percussive instruments. In the Model 3, female vocals sound much better than in the Model Y, especially with rock music accompanying, which is something of an issue that I've had with the Model Y. In terms of cabin noise, at lower speeds, so like 25, 35 miles per hour, seems pretty good. I'm inclined to say it's a little bit better than my Model Y, but I think the reason that it's a little bit better is not because the total volume of noise is lower, but the frequencies of noise that are let into the cabin are actually a lower frequency. So I feel like the noise that comes in is a bit more of a low rumble, which is more comfortable in the ears. When I'm driving at like 45, the sound of wind noise that comes into the cabin is a bit more of a lower whooshing noise, and it feels a little bit more distant. So overall, it sounds better. Just in general, materials feel better, cabin feels better. The seats are very comfortable. I really like these seats. I think they are the right combination of comfortable and supportive. The materials work well. The cooling seats, I thought, did a great job. They're immediately noticeable. Interestingly, you can't have the cooling seats on without the rest of climate on, which is what I was hoping to have. Getting a sense of more road noise. I'm very familiar with these roads, and so I know what they sound like in my Model Y, as well as, you know, loaner Model S's, Model 3s that I have had, all while my Model Y has been in service. I am gonna do a quick loop onto the highways just so I can make sure I get that higher speed road noise in. The auto wipers just went on even though there's not a drop on the windshield, so that's still an issue. I haven't had an issue with the turn signals being on the wheel, but I also am not in a roundabout or anything that's complicated. I've just been, you know, switching lanes and going into turns. In terms of interior build quality, all of the materials feel better and feel sturdier. So like when you press on things, the Model Y creaks all over, and I've had 3 Model Ys at this point, and they've all had rattles and creaks. Seems unavoidable for the Model Y right now. Here, I do hear a little bit in this new Model 3 of things moving. They seem much more minor, which indicates to me that they could be easily managed with like a felt tape or something like that. But it's not completely gone. It does sound better than any of the other Model 3s or Ys that I've been in, but I am still hearing a little bit. One thing that I don't get completely is when the shifter comes onto screen. All right, there's a little bit of a bump. That felt good. Acceleration feels good. Steering feels great to me. I think the trade-offs that they made in favor of softer suspension are wonderful. Yeah, I don't feel like for the vast majority of people, anybody would be disappointed in the handling of this thing. It feels really good in curves, corners, turning, all of that sort of stuff. Using the buttons for things like autopilot, I would get used to very quickly. I'm at highway speeds right now. It's not like quiet, but it sounds better than any other previous Model 3 that I've tested for sure. And it sounds pretty good. Coming into a turn here or curve here, this feels very planted and solid. I like the feeling of the new suspension a lot compared to the old Model 3. You can hear a little bit of the noise coming in from outside cars. That was a truck, a bit of a noisy truck. It dampened it pretty well, but it's not like you're completely isolated from the outside world. One thing that I'm curious about is how it decides to bring up the gear shifting part of the screen. So when you're driving, it actually goes away, and then I'm at 0 miles per hour right now, and it's still not showing up. So I would have to put my foot on the brake first, which is interesting because of that thing that I said, where I like to, turn into my driveway without hitting the brake. I'll put it into reverse so I can reverse into the garage. But this one, I would have to actually use my finger to swipe it up or swipe it out so I get the gear shifter available to me. But I have seen it also when you press the brake, so it's slightly less convenient in my opinion for that. Cameras look good. I think the buttons on the steering wheel are great, to be honest. They feel good, very responsive, and are comfortable to press in good positions for my hands. It does have these grooves, so your thumbs are more likely to rest right next to the buttons, which I find interesting on the steering wheel. Feels good. I like the quality of the steering wheel a lot, although I did like the previous Model Y steering wheel and Model 3 steering wheel as well, so that's just me. Ambient lighting is nice. It's still visible during the daytime, which looks great. I will say this feels like a much more refined car than the original Model 3 and even my current Model Y. There are a lot of things about this that I like a lot. The handling is just really good for a comfortable car. So I'm back in my Model Y with some thoughts, and I was able to test out everything that was important to me as a Model Y owner in terms of upgrades, right? So the sound system, the interior fit and finish quality, comfort, materials, the ride suspension, and the amount of noise coming in from the outside. So in terms of audio quality, I think it is significantly better. Welcome upgrade. It takes what is already a pretty good sound system and just refines it like the rest of the car. It refines it. It's better audio separation, instrument separation, less muddy, and it deals with complex soundscapes better than the current Model Y. And that to me is pretty significant. One thing that I will say is that the Model 3 speakers and the Model Y speakers are very similar, and they're placed similarly, even though the cabin is a different shape. So even in previous gen Model 3, I felt that the imaging or the position of the sound in the cabin is better on the Model 3, even regardless of the Highland update, than the Model Y. In the Model Y, in general, it feels a little bit more forward, it feels a little bit more distant and a little muddier. So if they update the Model Y and add in the new Model 3 sound system, I would assume that they adjust some of that spatial imaging, but it may not be as good in the updated Model Y as it is in the Highland Model 3. So something that we'll have to see. In terms of materials, I think the new Model 3 feels way better. Like everything in this Model Y has flex to it, creaks when pressed on. There's a lot of give to the materials, and they don't all feel very good. The Model 3 with the upgraded interior, it feels like a much more refined car. The only thing, I think visually, honestly, I prefer some of the center console sort of looks in the old Model Y or the 2023 Model Y. But overall, pretty much everything else just looks and feels a little bit better or a lot better, depending on what you're touching and what you're talking about. Actually, one thing that I did notice is that the dome lights in the cabin, those actually look worse in the new Model 3. They look like more plasticky, and you can see like the LED grid. That one was a little weird to me because the ones in the Model Y and Model 3 of the previous generation actually look pretty good. Those looked a little bit worse in the Model 3, in the new Model 3. Driving comfort, fantastic. I think the previous Model 3 drove okay. It was very planted, and it handled like a go-kart, really. The new Model 3 handles like a good mix of a pretty nice car and still a go-kart. So it's very planted, very quick, Handles really well in corners, has a little bit more softness in the suspension. You do roll a little bit more when going around corners, but it's honestly not even that much, and the trade-off is just, they made the right move for the vast majority of people. It's very comfortable, but still handles really well. I was really impressed by the handling and the suspension of the new Model 3. In terms of cabin noise, I did expect it to be maybe a little bit more of an upgrade for me. Maybe I'm coming in from the Model Y, which already has the dual pane windows and comfort suspension. But the Model 3 compared to this Model Y sounds better in every scenario. So less wind noise, less road noise, the noise that does leak in is more comfortable, less harsh, but it's not super quiet. It's not completely isolated from the outside world quiet like you could expect from a more luxury brand or luxury car, but it's definitely comfortable. That's what I'll say. It's comfortable, but not completely quiet. But it is better by far than any of the previous Model 3s and slightly better than my current Model Y. Aside from that, there are plenty of things in the rest of the car that just make for a really good upgrade. The comfort of the seats is fantastic. I really like those new seats. The screen being more responsive, having slimmer bezels, the just general sense of design continuity throughout the car, the ambient lighting, the improved materials. It's just a much more refined car. The older Model 3 was great in terms of what it brought to electric vehicles, but this new version of the Model 3 I truly think is actually a really just good car and a really good value for what you're getting. On the lack of stocks, I drove a Model X before that had the yoke steering wheel, and I was a little bit more bothered by the lack of stocks, whereas in the Model 3, because it was a full round wheel, I actually didn't mind it at all. It was really easy to get used to for me in the like 30 minutes that I drove the car. Gear shifting was a little bit less efficient. I think it's just really nailed down in the current Model Y, but it was a little bit less efficient. For all of the things that you're getting in the new Model 3, that is such a mild or minor trade-off. I think it's fine. I really don't think it's a big issue. The Highland upgraded Model 3 is a much better car than the original Model 3. It feels totally different. It's just way more refined. It's great. It's a really good car. And if they bring all of those upgrades to the next gen Model Y, I might have to upgrade. It's really comfortable. It's really good. I cannot wait for those changes to come to the Model Y. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you again real soon. If you want to test drive or order a new Tesla, be sure to use my link in the description down below. You'll get some sort of referral credit, or if you do the test drive, I get like a few hundred referral credits too.